Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deckbuilding Derezzed. I am your host, Code Marvelous, and today I am joined by Nels from Terminal 7.
Hello.
Thank you very much for coming on the show, Nels.
Yeah, of course, my pleasure.
So, you've got a really interesting Palana deck, kind of a interesting meta matchup for our regional season. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about what you do as far as content, assuming somebody in my viewer base hasn't heard of you.
I mean, I'm not gonna make no claims to ubiquity here, but yeah, me and my good buddy Jesse Turner, we co-host this Netrunner podcast called Terminal 7. We've been doing it for almost, I think, 3 years. Like, it'll be 3 years this fall, I'm pretty sure. It's weird and cool. Yeah, I fell in love with this game against kind of all the odds. Like, I'd played almost no CCG. Like, I played Magic in the mid 90s and then stopped because it was hoovering up too many of my preteen dollars. And I, kind of the artificial scarcity booster pack thing that just never really sat with me. I don't even remember. I think I bought this new version of Netrunner for myself, just like on a lark, because I heard a bunch of people say it's good. And I played it at the table a couple times, whatever, and enjoyed it. But it didn't like get full hooks in.
Right.
But then somebody I worked with at the time said, "Oh, Jesse over at Slick, I think he likes that game a lot." And then I was like, I kind of known Jesse from like a couple of parties, because like we're both local video game developers here in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of knew of him, but he wasn't like a pal or anything really. But I just sent him a message like, "You want to play this game sometime?" And then we're just like, "Oh, we just completely fell into it," and we're like, "This is great," and we're good, very good friends.
This is our lives now.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
I'm like, and then it was like, because we started playing, I got 2 boosts. That's what it was. The kind of the tipping point was a buddy of mine got me 2 boosters for Christmas of, I guess, when did the game come out? 2013?
Yeah, 2013, I want to
Yeah,
say.
so Christmas that year, I think probably the first 2 Genesis boosters. And that was kind of like, oh, I could build some decks in this sense. And then shortly thereafter, I got hooked up with Jesse, I think like February. And then we just went screaming deep over that summer, deep. And then in the fall, I was like, I've been thinking about making this podcast. Because at that point, we're like, we were getting together at the pub once a week to just like talk about Netrunner and hang out. So I'm like, we can just do what we're doing now, except we can also record it and put it up on the internet. And that's kind of what we did.
Yeah, I mean, but that is basically the story of how like 90% of all Netrunner content starts.
Yeah,
and then we decided to record what we were going to do anyway. But yeah, so thank you again very much for coming on. I have to say, I'm a huge fan. Your podcast was
reciprocal.
Your podcast was a huge help to me, being in like a smaller rural meta, helping me like break into the game and get that enthusiasm when now the meta in my area is like 9 people, but when I first started playing, it was just me and one other guy that played in this area.
Well, it's good. Happy. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we want to do, right? So it's just kind of like something that helps, people feel still stay connected to the game, or like gives them other ways to think about it that aren't just here's how you try hard, win type of stuff. That's kind of what we do, and if that's what it's doing for people, I am very happy about that.
It's good. So let's talk about the deck.
Yeah,
it's Palana Banana, which is one of my favorite IDs.
It's good. I mean, the thing that I like about, there's always a bit, like just the pure get a credit or save a credit for doing a thing IDs. They always feel like a little bit mayonnaise, right? Like,
Kate, mayonnaise goes with everything, Nels.
It's I think so.
Yeah.
But the thing that I like about Palna is that you get a credit whenever your opponent does something. I mean, you could engineer situations, we'll talk about one of those in a minute, where you force your opponent to do that thing, but the fact that it's like has that interplay just built into it, as compared to, ETF, where it's like install a card, get a credit. Well, that's the only way to play the game, really. But this, it's like make your opponent want to do, like, there are definitely games where I'm like, oh, you're gonna draw a card, huh? I got the credit right here in my head. They're like, okay, fine, I'll draw a card. I'm like, yeah, that's what I love.
And much like ETF, Palana has this thing where it makes you a lot more money than you anticipate. Like, those credits can very easily be the difference between victory and defeat in a lot of these games.
Totally. Oh yeah. I mean, because like the average game. Well, there's probably no way to calculate the average game, right? But like in general, probably your opponent's gonna draw cards on like between 7 to 10 turns of the game at least.
Right.
That's like, if an ID said begin the game with a stack of 10 credits on it at the start of your turn, take 1 credit off, you'd say,
Yeah.
that sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
And this is like, yeah, okay, it'll do that. Great.
So let's start. Where do you want to start as far as what do you want to go over first?
I mean, we can start with the agendas just because they're probably not going to like complete. I mean, in general, right, the deck is kind of like, it's kind of like a kind of rush, kind of glacier Palana deck. It's not like something that has never been seen before, ever. But it's a little bit updated, and I think it actually is very well positioned in the meta right now for a couple of reasons.
I love the inclusion of Brain Trust and Philotic Entanglement in this deck.
Yeah, buddy. So that's the thing, right? Is that like part of it is it's both a meta call, but it's also playing on how people who think they know how a deck like this works. Because often, right, this goes back to like classic 2015, 2016 RP World Champ, Jinteki kind of glacier thing where it's like 3 Virtue Perfects, 3 Nisei Mark IIs, and at the time it was 3 NAPDs. Now, more often, it's like 3 corporate sales teams or 2 corporate sales teams and a Philotic or whatever, right? If you're really feeling sassy. But I deliberately put in another 3 too, because like so often you can put a card face down in that remote, don't advance it, and your opponent will think, oh, it's another Caprice, or it's a Batty, or it's a Jackson Howard, or whatever. Next turn, you're like, oh, 1, 2, 3, score. And when that takes you from 2 points to 4 points, if the first 2 points were scored Nisei Mark II, then you're in a great position.
No, that's crazy. Yeah. I cannot count on 2 hands the number of times that the 4 points with the Nisei scored was just like sealed coffin for certain decks that I play on runner side. Like, it's a terrifying thing, and being able to cheat out. I did a couple test games myself with this, and the ability to cheat out the brain trust is just really funny, because then you can get people to run into baddies.
Yep.
With nothing for them to steal in the server.
Yeah, that's great. And then the other, because like I said, kind of the people so expect the deck's scoring plan to ideally be like a 4-2, another 4-2, and then a 5-3. And, often playing other incarnations of this deck, like, you get to 6 points, and you just feel so annoyed, because you're like, oh, well, I scored 2 of my Nisei Mark IIs, and then my opponent stole another one, and then I scored a corporate sales team, so now I gotta claw for a 5-3 or another 4-2 or whatever. So the fact that you can, if you get to 6, you can just put something face down in your remote and say, what is it?
Yeah.
Or for that, yes, that exact same reason is why there's 1 clone retirement in there. I mean, losing Brain Trust, and to a lesser extent Philotic, out of R&D, it's like, it's no worse than losing a corporate sales team, right? Losing this out of R&D does suck a little bit more, because that free bad pub, not great. But in the BC regionals last weekend, which this actually took me to second place in, which was pretty great. This clone retirement, this one of clone retirement right here, won me the game out of the losers bracket to go into the finals. Where my opponent, this rad local dude named she's from Victoria, BC. Peter, he's a great player. He's playing like a kind of Haley Faust Clotlock, very similar to what I was playing. With Rumor Mill that they can just recur forever, and the one thing that hoses this deck for sure is Rumor Mill. So I was like, I got 6 points, and he did like a deep data mining, pulled out 2 friggin' agendas, put himself at 6 points, and I was like, oh, well, this might be bad. I really hope I get the card I need. And then I top decked the clone retirement. I was just like, oh, okay, boop, boop, you're done.
Yeah.
Because at that point, Clot was like not available or whatever. But even then, if I went install advance, they'd probably think, oh, it's a Nisei Mark II, and you're like, any actions? They said no, and you're like, okay, advance one more time, score.
Yep.
Yeah, and it does the exact same thing that the Brain Trust do, right? It means that if you ever get to 6 points off of Niseis, you're good, or this plus a Nisei is better than scoring a 5-3, in my opinion. So it just gives you that flexibility and a little bit of counterplay if your opponent expects you to really be like tunneled onto that 4-2-4-2-5-3 scoring plan.
Right. So, par for the course, we have
Not too surprising. 2
global foods. We have 3 Nisei Mark IIs because this is what makes Jinteki Glacier go.
Yep. Now that AstroScript is effectively unique, I maintain this is the best agenda in the game.
Ooh. I don't know.
It's real good.
I think Project Atlas might be better. It's just in a shit faction.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, no. The best agenda in a good faction that has good tools.
Right. Best Jinteki agenda, at least.
Yeah. Oh, no question. Nisei Mark II is incredible. The stress level, if nothing else, the stress level this puts on your opponent when it appears in your score area is just unreal. People start pressing you hard to try to force you to use the counter, and people take a lot of unnecessary risks sometimes to do that.
Yeah.
All right, so we got Philotic, same reason we discussed with Brain Trust.
Yep, another 3-2. Although if you're lucky, you can maybe ping 1 or 2 good things out of their hand if they're really sitting on them, which can be nice. But in general, it's a 3-2 that sometimes does another nice thing.
And then we have a single Future Perfect.
Yep, just one. Since there's just the one, that basically means that unless your opponent nabs that, they gotta take 4 of your agendas to win, which is pretty nice.
Yeah, that's nice. So that's the agenda suite. It's good. We're still on the lower side. We're still definitely in a glacial range here. Where do you want to go next?
We can just roll top to bottom. The assets, 3 Jackson Howards because
I hear he's pretty good.
That's fine.
Yeah.
3 Palana Agriplex. So I love me the Palana Agriplex.
So this is a maligned card. This is not a card that people like.
People are salty about it. I think it's great. I think you'd have a hard time making a case for it outside of Palana, but in it, it's awesome, I think. So the key is you don't leave it on the board always. You want to tuck it into... You're only ever going to build 1 remote, and you tuck it in there, right? Because the thing is like this deck, it's not like an RP super hardcore Glacier, like this is just going to grind to inevitability type of thing.
Right.
You really want to get that first Nisei scored early, and that means you want cards as much as you want money. And this gives you both. Yes, you're also feeding your opponent cards, which is the whole it's not good thing. But especially right now, when like so many of the runners' options, especially for econ, are like really click intensive, right? Temujin, to get that Temujin money, you got to make runs, which means you're not installing other cards or whatever. So feeding your opponent's cards isn't that bad. Of course, like you don't put it down and res it always, and I think you'd be a crazy person if you put down more than 1 unless you were in a really weird situation. But it's 3 because you want to get 1 early, and then once it's in there ticking away, it can be great, and then you just install over it. Because the time when you don't want Agroplex doing its Agroplex thing is that turn when you're trying to score, and then the turn after you're scoring and you're trying to recover, right?
You don't want them getting more options while you are off tempo.
Yeah, and you don't want your HQ to be filling up with a bunch of cards where you're just like, I didn't get any econ cards, and now I have 3 agendas, but I only have 4 credits because I was defending my remote to score. I don't know what to do. So I think it's the right way to use it is not to keep it up always, but it's to put it in there, let it tick on for a little bit, and just install over it when you don't need it, and then repeat as necessary. Yeah. You could like... potentially maybe go down to 2 if you wanted to find a spot for something else, but in general I find that it really does its best work early, which is why I put 3 in there.
Sure. So as far as upgrades, we got 2 Caprice Nisei.
She's real good.
Pissing people off for what?
Yep.
2 years now?
This is kind of also sort of this, unless things dramatically change, this is kind of also for the next like 3 to 4 months is going to be the last hurrah for this deck, right? Because as soon as Caprice rotates out, it's going to get kind of weird.
Things are going to get a little hairy, yeah.
Yeah, you go up to 3 baddies and like maybe try to scrape up influence for...
an Ash, maybe?
Ash is going too, because he's Genesis. Yeah!
I don't know. We're going to lose a whole bunch of stuff. There ain't going to be no Plascretes, which is going to be pretty rad. There ain't going to be Wizards, so things are going to be weird.
It's going to be a weird time. But but for the last act of Caprice, she does real good work still.
Yep. So we got Chrysium. Chrysium does Chrysium things.
Yep. In general, like this deck, the one time and the two matchups that I lost in our regional were both like really. I mean, you can deal with Siphon okay just because you make so much money, but when it's Siphon or Opus and Vamp, that's when stuff can really suck. So Chrysium just between Chrysium and Caprice, that kind of helps.
Yeah.
You not get super hosed by Vamp.
Yeah, I mean, Giant Dad is a thing, especially against more glacial type builds.
Yeah.
So we got two Marcus Baddies. Marcus Baddie is another really fine card.
He's pretty great. And, there's a higher proportion of destroyers, but even, he can still kind of be a one-shot Caprice, which often is all you need.
Yeah. I mean, I've killed people with the Baddie Cortex lock when they didn't have a killer out.
Yeah, you can also do that. Or, lots of people run Maw now, and Maw gives those two MUs. They're like, I'm going to run you with 4 cards and only one program installed. You're like, cool, 5 net damage.
Yep.
Goodbye.
And, of course, it's just it's Sublime with Cobra.
Yes, it's like, I'm going to pick.
Yeah. So, we got 3 Celebrity Gift, par for the course. I love the gift that you use for your Netrunner list.
I don't know if that was a real man or like a weird.
It was from a commercial. It was from a weird old commercial.
Well, there we go. Yeah, I'd never seen that before, and I was just like, "Can I find a good giraffe GIF?" And then I'm like, "Oh, actually, I found the best one."
Yeah, because it's literally a toy giraffe.
It's so good.
Yeah. So we got Fast Track. So talk to me a little bit about Fast Track.
Lordy Lord, do I love Fast Track. I mean, of course, the use for Fast Track is to put 2 Nisei Mark IIs back to back, right? Because often, the ideal situation is you've set up a well-protected remote to score your first Nisei Mark II. Runner goes for it, because they don't have 2 kinds of the right breakers, or they fail some Caprice side games or whatever. They don't get in, and they probably blown a bunch of resources trying to get in, right? So then you're just like, okay, cool. Fast Track, Nisei Mark II, install, advance. Because unlike fast tracking a 5-3, you can fast track 5-2, install it, and have it ready to score the next turn.
Right.
You can also either intentionally or bluff-wise grab one of the 2 3-2s, which is another reason to have 2 of them instead of just 1. And if you're on 6 points, but your opponent has totally got your remote locked, then you either are just going Hail Mary or are being a Sass Lord. You can pull fast track for that 1 clone retirement and be like, all right, now you got to fish around in HQ. Are you going to find it? So it's just like, because in general with this, you really need to have a good handle on like what your tempo is and when your scoring windows are, and then when to exploit them. Because especially now, if your opponent does find rumor mill, or they vamp you, or they just get enough money to keep hitting your remote or drop an interdiction or whatever else. It's not going to be the kind of thing where you're just going to build this impenetrable remote, right? You're going to have to know when your moment is, and with taking in fast track just helps. Go.
My single greatest fast track moment in history was I fast tracked a Future Perfect and then mooshined Junebug into a Fresh Surfer.
And put a piece of that is also a different setup, but one I also love very much.
So we got a single friends. It's really funny because this card prevents you from having friends in real life. But yeah, like this card's so good. It's
you
just
have friends
like
in high places
unreal.
because you don't have friends in real places.
Right.
Yeah, it's. I mean, like it. You could probably make the case for 2 in here, except you don't really have. Like you're almost never going to reinstall an Agroplex.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're putting back a Caprice or a Baddie
or both
or both. Yeah, it's good. There's a reason why they're everywhere.
Yeah. And then we got hedge funds, 3 of them. Good card. IPO.
Yeah. The thing I like about IPO over restructure is that if you have a really sweet opening turn, you can hedge fund, install a piece of ice, IPO, which you can't do with restructure. the fact that it pulls that credit threshold down just a little bit is actually really nice. And you can install a Nisei Mark II, advance it once, and then IPO. Yeah,
it's good.
I really like it.
Scarcity of resources, a fine Jinteki card if ever there was one.
This one I've definitely gone back and forth. At the actual tournament, this was a voter intimidation, which I did not use once on the entire day, which is why I think this is maybe a little bit better. I mean, I heard there's this resource, some kind of contract to T something that people like a lot.
Yeah.
You can keep it if you are worried about your opponent dropping rumor mill or interdiction to clear it. I mean, you could conceivably still make a case for that voter intimidation, where if your meta is very heavy with smoke, using voter intimidation to blow up a netmarker that has like 11 credits on it.
If they're letting that get
nice.
11 credits on it, they're not using the netmarker correctly.
Also true.
But SACCon's even costing 2 is just like not great, because it turns it from I drew it, so let me just put it down.
Yeah.
To do I need it? And like Film Critic being 3 is not great. Dean Lister being 4 is not great.
Yeah. Against if you can get this up early against that, the sort of Haley Lock Laguna Faust thing that I was playing. Oh man, you are so sad.
Yeah.
Because you're probably not scoring early, and you only got 1 current. I think in general this is the right call unless your meta is super full of smokes, or maybe that gross DLR Andy deck, because
the black file is nightmarish.
Yeah, or you can use voter intimidation to blow up like one of their DLRs without needing to tag them, which is almost impossible to do otherwise.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, but in general, I think Scarcity is a better call, and for our actual regionals, I know I would have been happier with Scarcity than voter intimidation.
Sure. So Ice, we got Chiashi. It's really rad. It's one of my favorites.
It's big, but if in the right circumstance or with a baddie behind it and 14, 15 credits, that can end the game if they don't have enough cards.
It's also just, it's mud. It's like super mud.
Yeah, it's expensive, but you can usually afford it if you're not needing to res it and like a DNA tracker in the same turn. Then it's real mean.
Yep. Eli's really good, and it's off the MWL. Seems great.
Yeah, the main thing that I don't like about it is that, like, I will, with just about any of these other pieces of ice, I will, even without a Caprice, I will totally go for scoring the first agenda behind it if it seems like the runner isn't set up to deal with it. But with Eli, I always feel so I don't want to do it, because it's like, well, if they run click 1 or 2, they're just gonna get in and that's it. That's why it's like, if I needed to free up a single point of influence, I'd probably go down to 2 Eli's, just toss in a Bastion or whatever, or Wall of Static. But otherwise, it's good.
Yep. And then we have one of my favorite new barriers.
Yeah.
Cider Adaptive Barrier.
Yep. I like it. It's
so good.
The thing, it starts being a tiny bit more expensive Wall of Static, which is already like a little bit annoying for your paper clips and corroders, but then it just keeps getting better and better. You put 2 on the same server, they're both strength 4 friends. You can just put 2 pieces of ice in front of it with no intention to ever res them, and it still makes the cedars better.
Yeah. And these are really bad for smoke. Like, so
yes. Bad. If you can ticket from strength 3 to strength 4, or I guess if you're feeling really sassy, up to strength 8 somehow, then breaking that with Blackstone is
feels bad. Yeah,
real bad.
It feels bad. But yeah, it's a good one. DNA Tractor is really par for the course for modern Jinteki Glacier. I don't think that there's a single 8 cost code gate that gives you more value than this does.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful. There was definitely at least one game in our regional where my scoring server was 2 DNA trackers and a Caprice.
Well, let's just look at this, because this is 1 strength higher than Toll Booth. It costs them 3 more credits than Toll Booth, and it removes 3 cards from their hand.
Yep. Well, the only thing it doesn't do is end the run.
But really, it kind of does say end the run. Like,
yeah, as long as like, if it's this naked is a trying to score behind it with only this is like, it's a bit of a bold play. But if you're feeling like, if you're willing to, because it is a vicious tempo hit if your opponent face plants it, even if they do manage to steal one of your agendas, right? But that with anything else behind it,
it's pretty bad.
Or another piece of ice, you're just like, oh yeah, we're doing this, we're going.
Yeah. So we got Lotus Field, really good card, really good. Macrophage, what is this for a claw? Talk to me a little. Tapeworm?
It's to keep you from sometimes tapeworm, but mostly to keep you from losing out of R&D on medium digs. My very first game of the day, it was the turn before I was gonna score my 7th point. Opponent goes for the medium dig. He gets to look at 4 cards, and the 4th one is his 7th point. And I was like, I really wish my macrophage was on R&D right now. I just hadn't seen it, obviously. But yeah, it mostly keeps you from losing out of R&D.
That makes sense. And it's worth noting that Anarch is one of the factions that's least well equipped with what people are currently playing to deal with a 7th strength code gate.
Correct. You want to break this with Black Orchestra? Be my guest.
Go ahead. You can go and spend like 14 credits. Yeah. 12 credits. Yeah, at least.
Well, I think it's because you have to go to 4 to 6 to 8 takes 2, and then so 3, 6, 9, 12 credits plus 2 to install. 3 to install. 15.
15 credits. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, correct.
All right. So we got Cobra. Cobra's so good.
Yep, it's just another night. Any destroyer is great with Batty. This will keep them from making those central runs over and over again. It's not too expensive. Whereas, like, if you just kind of put this on archives as a precaution in case they drop a Temage in there.
Oh, it's so good.
Great. It's great.
Yeah. Well, I think Cobra is really interesting because obviously Rototurret's been around for a long time, since the core, obviously. But, like, Cobra's neat because usually people are like, oh, you only have $4, so nothing bad is going to happen to me if I don't have any programs down, right?
Right.
And, like, Cortex Lock and Cobra are both like, that is factually inaccurate. Let me just take some of your cards out of your hand.
Yep. Both of those definitely do the job. And, a lucky Cortex Lock with a Batty can end the game on the first turn. They both do their work for sure. And, late game when Cortex Lock isn't doing anything for you, you can still just toss it for a couple credits on a server that has Cedar Adaptive Barrier on it, so you're at least making your Cedars better.
Yeah. Fun fact, at a store championship where I took Adam in top forward, my tournament losing, like, knocked me out of the loser's bracket. Somebody battied a Cortex Lock when I had Brain Ship down.
Oh no!
Turns out that's really bad for your health.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So we got Broto Turret, which is you got a lot of HB ice. Turns out HB makes a lot of really good ice.
They do. They know how to manufacture them intrusion countermeasures. Electronic.
Intrusion countermeasures countermeasure electronics. Because 80s.
That's right. I went with Rotos instead of like an Ichi or something, just because the thing I like about it is that it does also end the run. Of course, it can be instantly parasited. That sucks. But the fact that like just one of these boys shows up, that plus Caprice, totally happy to try and score behind it. Which you just can't really do as well if it's behind, a solo Ichi or even a solo Cobra. A little bit harder to make that case, but Roto's just like, I'm actually going to end the run, so deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it can be instantly parasited, but that might be better than some of your other things being parasited, maybe, in the long game.
Yeah, and instant parasite is way less prolific now than it was, a few months ago. So it's less of a concern.
Yeah. And then we've got Excalibur, which I've been seeing in a lot of Glacier decks lately.
Yep. anything that has Nisei Mark II or Caprice with Excalibur, they are best friends.
Yeah, seems good.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you're feeling good about your scoring remote, but you're worried about losing out of R&D, this also turns off medium big digs, right?
Yep. I have a one of die V in my smoke deck specifically because of how vexing this card is when I'm playing indexing.
That and Mother Goddess.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. It is just it with the ability to end the run with either your upgrades or your scored agendas. It does good work.
Yeah. So this is the deck. We're gonna take it for a spin on competitive Jinteki and see how we do. Nels, thank you very much for coming on.
Of course, my pleasure.
And
it was
go ahead.
So super fun. No, it was super fun.
Yeah, man. And before we jump to the next video, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, if they want to listen to me and Jesse flap our yaps about all kinds of Netrunner stuff, they can find all that at idlethumbs.net/Terminal7, or just look for Terminal 7 on iTunes or Pocket Cast or wherever you get your podcasts.
Cool. And I'll also put a link to the podcast in the show notes below.
Yes.
And everybody watching at home, we'll see you in the test run.